Hey guys, it's Corey, and welcome back to another episode of Crafters Roundtable, the podcast where I get to sit down with individuals in the quilting, sewing, and crafting space and learn more about their experiences in this wonderful world of quilting, sewing, and crafting. Before we get started, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel wherever you're watching. So if you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or iHeartRadio, make sure you're following those pages so you can get updates anytime a new episode of Crafters Roundtable is released. Without further ado, here's our podcast with Chris Marchini. Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm super excited that you are joining us here on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with me.
Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. So, to give everyone kind of a recap, kind of some context on how we met, Chris and I had been following each other online through our social channels for quite some time. And we were able to link up at QuiltCon this past year. And I'm super duper excited to do that. And while we were there, he was sporting a bunch of different cool designs and patterns that he has created that we will get into a little bit later. And I just asked him, I said, "Hey, Chris, can you hop on the podcast with me?" And he was like, "Sure, why not? Totally." Very chill, very cool, very demure, as they say. So it's super cool to have you on. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and then talking about your business, Rose City Originals, and how it came to be, kind of what inspired you to start that?
Sure. So I'm mostly a quilter. I'm on social media quite a bit, mostly like TikTok, Instagram, Reels. That I really like doing videos more than photography. I am a quilter, not a photographer. I have learned that very much. But I do a lot of just weird quilting. Some people would consider it weird. I love scrappy quilts, like this quilt behind me that I finished recently. It's all just out of my scrap bin. Nothing new was purchased for it.
Okay.
Um, and I just love sharing what I'm working on. It's basically like, here's what I'm doing today. I'll, do one step of a quilt or whatever it may be, film it, put it online.
Right.
I am based out of Portland, Oregon, which is the city of roses, which is where my business got its name. So Rose City Originals.
Got
I
it. Okay.
Yeah, I I chose the originals because I'm writing, like, I do quilt pattern designing, and they're pretty unique in the industry. I have found it's not typically like block based patterns. It's more of like a giant image on a
Right.
quilt,
Right.
but it's not a pixel quilt either. So a little unique, a little original, in my opinion, anyway. And then
Okay.
I've also started doing surface designing fabric.
Oh, I didn't know you were doing fabric designing.
I am starting it, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. That's the kind of in the future thing. I
Yeah.
like how I think it's funny that you said weird quilts, because it's not the quilting and the patterns and things that you're designing aren't what you would call traditional by any means. But I
Hmm.
definitely think they have an incredible spot in this space, and they are original. So don't doubt yourself. I think they're really cool,
Thank
and
you.
they bring a little bit of a flair to the industry. Have you always been like super creative growing up, or was this something that you've kind of fell into, or how did that come about?
I have definitely always been creative. Like, as far back as I could think, I always would be doing some kind of art project, whether it was just like doodling, drawing, painting, making stuff out of other stuff. Like,
Yeah.
as a kid, I was constantly getting into all my mom's craft supplies, messing them up. I learned to sew when I was probably around 8, but I was not allowed to touch my mom's sewing machine. So for the first several years, it was all hand sewing, and I don't enjoy hand sewing, and
No,
that's probably why.
none of
But
us, none of us do. Well, some people do, but
some people do. And
yeah.
kudos to them. I'm not one of them. So, like, it's always been part of me, just being creative, having to have that outlet to. release my energy into the world.
For sure. Well, and it's a great energy to release, so that's what that's for. So that's really good. What about any like influences or designers maybe that you started following that have helped kind of create your modern aesthetic that you have today? Do you have like one of those like this is the person that really helped me find kind of my voice in quilting or different things like that?
Somewhat. Like there's a few quilters. So I've said I've been sewing forever, but I've really only
Right.
been like focused on quilting since 2018.
Okay.
But prior to that, like I discovered quilting YouTube.
Okay.
So I watched like Angela Walters, Donna Jordan. I would just sit and watch their videos, and their take on quilting was a lot less intimidating than others I had seen. Like it's
Uh-huh.
okay if you mess up, finished is better than perfect. And
Right.
that's what really finally got me to be like, okay, I think I can do this. I think I can take this fabric, cut it into teeny tiny little pieces, and put it back together in a pleasing manner.
Right.
Quilting can have a lot of seams, and that can get a little intimidating when you're used to sewing like garments that are just like big pieces, sew them together, whether it's a straight seam or a curved seam, it's just you're making this structure. And that seemed less intimidating to me than something like this, taking all these pieces, putting them together, trying to get your points to match, all of that.
Right.
Um, but with their encouragement on YouTube, I just dove in and I have been quilting ever since.
I love that. So just from our multiple talks and then just from this energy right now, I'm feeling that you are a big like kind of self-starter. You just want to kind of
Oh yeah.
figure it out, dive in and go for it. So like I want how did that come about when you were working on all of your patterns? Like what got you into I want to write patterns and I want to have this specific vision? Were you just not able to find what you were looking for on the market or kind of
Yeah,
talk to us about that whole design inspiration and that flow?
sure. So in 2018, that's when I made my first quilt, and that was in like May, I want to say that I finished that quilt top.
Okay.
And then by Christmas, I had made 5 quilts for gifts plus one for myself. Like
Oh, wow.
I was hooked. I was fully into it.
Right?
Um, and then the following year, I wanted to make a quilt for my husband because he wasn't one of the gifts. It was my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, both my kids, and my mom.
Okay.
And so I'm like, he needs a quilt. And he's really big into houseplants. And I was trying to find a quilt that was a Monstera leaf. And
Okay.
I could not find anything that wasn't like small FPP or like giant Hawaiian style applique, I mean, it's basically a whole cloth with
Right.
just humongous applique on it. That's, I was not ready for that. So I'm like, okay, well, drawing this out shouldn't be too hard. So I actually printed a picture of a Monstera leaf onto like graph paper,
Okay.
and I just started tracing it. I didn't want it to just be squares and half square triangles because then it gets like real blocky
Mhm.
looking. So I figured out putting in half rectangle triangles helps give a
Okay.
smoother curve. Well, the illusion of a curve without actually
Right,
sewing
right.
curves.
Right.
Um, and so it took me probably a month just to draw it out on this graph paper, like where are my seams going to be so I don't end up with Y seams or partial seams, stuff butting up in the wrong place.
Right.
Um, and then it took me, I think, a week to sew it because I would sew it after work while my husband was still at work because it was supposed to
Oh,
be a
fair, 'cause it's a
secret.
surprise. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I got it all sewn and quilted and bound in a matter of I think 2 or 3 weeks on just my little vintage domestic sewing machine. I
Wow.
Looking back, I like have no idea how I did that and kept it secret. But it turned out really good, especially for like my first quilt where I was like drafting the pattern.
Right.
Um, and then he posted a picture on like a houseplants group because he's in lots of houseplants groups, and everyone like freaked out about it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I need this pattern. My want my mom to make it for me, or my partner's also a quilter and they would love to do this." And then I had to figure out how to take this piece of graph paper with all of my scribbles on it and turn it into a pattern someone could actually follow.
Right,
And that took
right.
me a year. Like it took me a year to actually release the pattern and figure out how to write it so that it wasn't like this huge thick like Bible because there's so many different pieces and it's not like make this block and then repeat 20 times.
Oh,
Like
true.
it's I think it's 20 sections and each section is different. Like it's made
Oh,
up of different elements, and
Right.
then they're all different sizes. So it took me a bit, and I took inspiration. My husband's also big into Lego,
Okay.
and if you've ever seen like a Lego instruction booklet, there's no
Oh
words in
yes.
it.
Nope.
It's just pictures. Like you can tell what piece it is. It goes here. This goes here. Like that's kind of smart. So I use that in my patterns, like showing, okay, it's this half square triangle in this orientation. It connects to this solid rectangle or whatever. And like you put these together and then you put these together. And so if you follow the order, it's usually like 4 or 5 steps per section.
Uh-huh.
You don't have any Y seams. You don't have any partial seams. Nothing complicated. It's all just straight sewing.
Hmm.
So it's
All
like putting
right.
a
So
puzzle together.
yeah, a little bit of a different take on it. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting because, like, I've always wanted, like, to not I don't think I'm adventurous enough to write my own pattern, but I do have, like, ideas on how I wanna do it, but I could only imagine, like, having to brain dump what you have scribbled out and try to make it make sense for others to understand.
Yeah. So for those watching on YouTube, you can see like this is how I did it. Like
Ah.
this is step one. So like so these pieces together wherever the arrows are, and then you take those bigger units, sew them together, and like by the end you have this section. So that's
Oh.
how it goes together. So like how do I write down sew a half square triangle to another half square triangle along this edge with the point pointing this like it would have been a huge thick pattern that I don't think anyone would have enjoyed making. I know I
Right.
wouldn't have. So
So
this makes it a lot easier.
what's the finished size of that quilt?
So this actually is the original Monstera leaf that I did,
Oh,
and it
look.
finishes at 71 by 81.
Oh my gosh, that is massive.
Yeah, I do big quilts.
Sometimes they're a little bit more fun. That way, you just kind of have that full piece and you're ready to go instead of just a wall hanging. But
Right.
either work. There's multiple different options. So, how many patterns do you have right now on your website? I know that was probably
I think I'm up to 16 plus a few freebies.
okay.
So probably 18,
Wow,
18
that's
actual
awesome.
patterns on my website. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite one?
It's probably You Should See Me in a Crown, which is an image of a skull wearing a crown. And it was a bit of a hyper fixation for me. I was sewing another quilt. I don't know what it was. Just jamming out to music. And
Yeah.
it was Billie Eilish's You Should See Me in a Crown came
Okay.
on.
Okay.
And it just got me thinking. I was already working on designing a skull quilt. I'm like, ooh, if I put a crown on it and did this and that would be really cool. And it was 6 days from that point to having a fully designed, sewn, quilted, and bound quilt. Like I was super
Oh my
hyper fixated on
gosh,
it.
you were
So it's probably
determined.
still one of my favorites. Yeah.
That's really cool. I have a thing for skulls too, so that's a I have to hop on the website and take a look at the pattern. That sounds nifty. But along with all of your other patterns, I noticed a lot, and I noticed a lot on your social media that you do a lot with AcuQuilt.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So talk to me about like the different dyes and the patterns, the things that you've created. I know you've got the quilted trucker hat, you've got the
Hmm.
bow tie. I'm sure
Hmm.
there are a few other ones. Talk us through kind of that whole collaboration, how it came about, how the experience has been. I'm very interested to learn more about that.
So AccuQuilt actually found me on
Okay.
TikTok.
Okay.
Um, we were like just casually like commenting on videos and chatting back and forth, whatever. And then they did a little ad for a dye that was called Hattie's Choice, and it's a block that has some like different angles in it.
Okay.
And my youngest daughter is named Manhattan, and we call her Hattie for short. So I was like, oh well, obviously I need this dye because it's my kid's name.
Right.
Um, and so they actually sent me the dye along with the Go Me the Little cutter,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, just to try out because I didn't have an AccuQuilt yet. And then from there, like we just started talking more. I did um, a quilter spotlight interview with Pam Heller for their blog.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just like it's spiraled out of control from there, really. um, they sent me some more dies, and then I did my randomly generated quilt, the first one, and it got really popular online, and they saw that. And they're like, hey, you want to be an ambassador for us? I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
Right. What does
So then
that
I
entail?
became an ambassador, and it was really just doing what I was already doing. I use AcuQuilt all the time now, so I just post what I'm working on. And then probably a year and a half or 2 years ago, their pattern team reached out to me to start writing patterns for upcoming dies. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, that's a fun opportunity. So, I get to see in advance what dies will be coming out. How can you take this die and make something different with it? Not necessarily making the block that it's intended for, but how else can you use it? Because we want the dies to be versatile. Like you're spending a chunk of money on the machine and the dies. You want to be able to use it as often as possible.
Hmm.
Um, so I started doing that, and then it was at QuiltCon 2024. I was talking with Lynn, who's their director of marketing or director of product, about some die ideas I had. And at the time, I was wearing one of my quilted trucker hats because I had
Okay.
released that as just a regular paper pattern a couple months prior. And she's like, "Have you ever thought about making that into a die?" I was like, "I would love that. That sounds amazing." So
Right.
then they were already planning on releasing a bucket hat die later that year in October, I want to say. And they're like, this would go perfect to pair with that. So we have like a hat launch for these project dies in October. I was like, okay. And this was QuiltCon, so it was February. So,
Right.
not a whole lot of lead time. Luckily, I already had I had all the instructions written. I had CAD files for printing the actual paper patterns.
Hmm.
So it was a pretty easy process from there. We got the test dies, made some hats. I made a lot of hats. I have so many hats. um, and then we launched it, and it's been very successful. I've been very happy with it.
Yeah.
Um, I still teach it as a workshop, and when I do the workshop, I'm usually using the paper pattern because most of the people in the class have the paper pattern. And I'm
Right.
like, I want to go back to my AccuQuilt because it's so much faster to cut it out. It's so much faster. And
Yeah.
then I approached them with the idea for the bow tie because last year I made a bow tie for a charity gala that my husband and I went to. And sitting there and like clipping all the curves, I was like, this is
Oh.
stupid. This is taking me forever just to do that part.
Right.
So I was like, this I think would be a good idea. Like, let's bring bow ties back. It'd be a great spring launch for Easter and weddings and prom and all the things like people are getting dressed up for.
Right.
So we launched that right before QuiltCon this year. And it's been pretty successful too. I like to think anyway. I've made a ton of bow ties. It's super fast. It's got all the clips for you, so it's like cut, sew, press, and done. Like
Oh,
it's so nice.
sold.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really nice.
That's awesome. So I guess I have two parts of a question. For someone that's never heard of AccuQuilt or used AccuQuilt before, can you give us like a quick elevator pitch on what an AccuQuilt is and how it is going to make their lives much better when it comes to cutting things out?
Sure. So AcuQuilt is a die cutting system. You have your cutter, which is a machine with rollers that you run everything through, and then the actual die boards, which are the green piece, have steel blades embedded in a block of wood, and it's laid out in a shape, whatever the shape is that you've purchased your die for. And when you add on up to 6 layers of quilting cotton and your cutting mat, you run it through the machine, and it applies pressure to push those blades through the fabric. So you're going to get the same shape every time. It's kind of like a cookie cutter. You're just going to get the same shape repeated over and over. They're super sharp blades. They are covered in foam for safety. So you don't have to worry about cutting yourself, which is really nice. It's great for kids, like doing
Mhm.
quilting with kids, so you don't have to worry about them using scissors or a rotary cutter. But you just run it through. It's great for scraps. Like this scrap quilt behind me, I used the AccuQuilt. I just pulled out my scrap bin, stacked it up on the die, ran it through, and got my shapes
And
really
called it
quick.
done. Yeah,
Yep.
that's really nice. And then you've been talking about the trucker hat and the bow tie. Do you have one nearby that we can see for those that are watching?
I have a bow tie right here. It's got little
Ah,
spiders on it, so it kind of matches my shirt.
so cute.
And then I do have some trucker hats. Let me grab one.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones. So this one is actually made out of printed velvet.
Oh my gosh.
So it's velvet on the top part, and then this is cotton poplin. This is all spoonflower fabric.
Oh, that's
And
so cool.
Yeah, I love
Uh,
them. I think they're super fun. You can totally customize them because you're starting with flat fabric.
right.
So if you want to upcycle, like I made some out of upcycled denim jeans. If you want to do embroidery, you can do that before it's a hat. So I'm sure you've done machine embroidery. Um, Hooping a hat, not an easy feat.
No,
If you have just a regular single needle flatbed machine, it's pretty much impossible. If
right.
you have a 10 needle, they have special jigs for it. But this, like, you can just embroider and then cut it out, and it's so much easier.
So with your pattern, like you said, you've got the paper pattern if someone wants to cut that alone, or you
Hmm.
have the die that's available through AccuQuilt, the dealers basically, or online. So what's the I guess like cutting process speed between paper and AccuQuilt? Like how long are you cutting for paper? How long are you doing it through AccuQuilt?
So with paper, I mean, it's definitely a lot longer
Right.
because what I do is like I'll trace it onto the fabric, and then you also have to transfer markings because there's
Oh,
like double dots to line up the front, a single dot in the back, like different spots that you're marking on the backside of your fabric. So that takes time.
right.
With the AccuQuilt die, we built notches into it. Do I have it? Of course, I have it right next to me. So it's got these little notches. So as soon as you cut it, there's nothing to transfer. So it's
Oh,
seriously just like run it through, move on to the next piece, your outer shell, your lining, all that. And then the notches are going to be what you line everything up with. So that's really where the huge time saver is not having to transfer those markings.
right. Cool. And now you've got me wanting to get. I don't have an AccuQuilt. Now you've got me wanting to get one because now I want to make a
Oh,
hat, and I need to.
I
I'm all about speed. I like speed, so I'm gonna have to cut it that way.
it's speed and it's accuracy.
Yeah,
So it definitely adds that element to it as well.
yeah.
I absolutely love my AccuQuilts. I have all three of their cutters. I probably
Okay.
use the Go Me, the little one, the most.
Oh,
That's what I use for my community quilt project because it's just easy to move around.
okay.
So yeah, if I had a bigger
Interesting.
space, the electric one would be set up somewhere, but I just don't have space for it right now.
Oh snap! They got an electric one too. Oh
Yep.
man. So many new toys, so many new toys.
Yes.
When I was looking through some of your things and I was kind of building what we were going to talk about today, I saw that you led a like a learn how to quilt AccuQuilt
Hmm.
series. Kind of what motivated you to do that, and what impact have you seen for like new quilters or quilters that are trying to learn different techniques? How has that been impactful for them?
That came about at part of that same conversation with Lynn at QuiltCon 2024.
Hmm.
We were just chatting, and I've gone to a couple shows with AccuQuilt at that point just to kind of work the booth and talk to people and have fun. Um, and the amount of times I would talk to someone, they say, "I have an AccuQuilt," and it's still in the box, and it's been sitting in the box for 2 years or 5 years or however many years. I was like, okay, so step one when you get home is take it out of the box. Because I will fully admit, when they first sent me an AccuQuilt, it sat in the cupboard for like 3 months.
Oh
Because I was like,
wow.
okay, like it's at first I thought it was more of like a novelty thing. Like, okay, that's fine. I've done scrapbooking before, so I was familiar with die cutting and how it works and whatever.
Right.
Um, but I was like, I can cut just as fast with my rotary cutter when it's squares. But then you start getting into funky shapes and templates. I was like, okay, so I busted it out and I started using it. Like, oh, this is actually really cool and this is really fast. So I always encourage people to just go home, take it out of the box, and start playing with it. If
Right.
you're worried about wasting fabric, pull out your scraps. Scraps, like the way I treat scraps, anyways, once they're in the scrap bin, it's free fabric. Like it was either the scrap bin or the garbage.
I never.
So if I mess it up,
Okay.
it's fine. It was
Yeah.
already a scrap. When I'm making scrap quilts like this one, I'm not worried about like waste on the outside edges. I'm like, it was already a scrap. It's just sitting there wadded up in a bin doing nothing for
That's what I
me.
call quilters math. That's what I call quilters math right there.
Right? Yeah, so this quilt was completely free because I didn't pay
It
anything
was
for
free.
it.
Yeah, you didn't have to pay for it. It was scraps. It's fine.
Right. Um, and so I always tell them to do that. And when I was talking with Lynn, I'm like, we could do like a series like baby steps. step by step, starting out. Like in the first video, I unbox the machine and I show the dies and what we're going to be using. And then it's a lot more in depth. We
Mhm.
go from cutting the fabric, sewing the different blocks, assembling the quilt top, quilting it. So we just do some straight line quilting with a walking foot,
Okay.
and then binding it. Because I find a lot of times, like when you follow a pattern or a tutorial, by the time you get your quilt top done, that's usually where it ends.
Right.
Like, okay, you have your finished quilt top. See you later.
Thanks for coming.
Right. So sometimes it'll go through the quilting process, like a lot of Angela Walters when she was with Craftsy and did the Midnight Quilter.
Hmm.
Um, she would show quilting because that's what her thing is. Like she's not so much a piecer as she is a quilter.
Right.
So she would show different options for quilting, and I appreciated that. But she never showed binding. It's like, okay, how do
Yeah.
you finish this thing? Like I can't throw it on my bed with these raw edges.
Right.
So I always like to show binding. And there's several different ways to show binding. I'd have lots of different videos on my social media about different ways I have bound quilts over the years. Um, and so I think it's 6 parts, and it's just the start to finish. I always refer people there when they're like, brand new quilter. How do I do this? So,
Okay. So
yeah.
for someone that's asking that question, brand new quilter, how do I do this? Where could they find that video series that you're talking about?
Yep. So it's on the AcuQuilt YouTube channel. And I looked anyway, it was like pinned. So it was like one of the first things you see when you go to it. If it's not pinned anymore, it's at least in the playlists section. So it's a little easier to find that way.
Okay. I'll be sure to find it exactly, and then I'll link it down in the description below so people can easily click off to it
Awesome.
and watch that. So you said 6 parts, and it's going to
Yep.
take you from start to finish.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Love it.
Yeah.
I love
I'm
we love things like that.
yeah, I like to break stuff down and make it more manageable. I don't consider myself like a good like teacher. I mean, I am, but like people ask me like for all kinds of pointers for getting started, and like that's it's kind of a loaded question. It's like, okay, where are we starting from? Like, do you have a rotary cutter and a mat? Like,
Mm,
how far back are we going? And everyone's styles are different. So I'll teach you what I know, but there's so much more out there.
yeah, definitely. So I want to shift gears real quick. I want to talk about more about you. We've talked about AccuQuilt, we've talked about your patterns. I want to talk about you. When you and I, we've been following each other online, so I never got to meet you really in person until QuiltCon. And when we met in person, you just gave off this incredible energy, very happy. You love hugs. Your badge even said that. But you had all these really fun, bright prints on that you were wearing on your hat, the bow tie, your shirt that you had. And I want to talk about like your overall identity. You just have that great feeling. Like someone just feels better when they're around you. So how have you seen that like influence your work and your creativity and your interactions in the quilting community? Because like you're just like this light for people.
So like the shirts, we'll just start there. It
Okay.
was 2 years ago. So I got really big on TikTok in March of 2022. I was designing my poison apple quilt, and one of the videos just like I don't know what it's like going viral is considered like what numbers or whatever, but to me it went viral.
Okay.
So I went from like 500 followers to 10,000 followers pretty much overnight. It
Oh
was
my gosh.
insane. My phone would not stop buzzing. Kind of drove my husband a little crazy. It was like, okay, I don't know what to do with this.
Right.
That's happening. Um, so at the time, I wasn't making my own shirts, so I was just wearing whatever random T-shirt I was wearing that day. And then the following summer, I bought some fabric. It was a secondhand online fabric thrift store, and I found this fabric that I really loved. It's like, okay, I want to try and make a shirt.
Mhm.
I've made clothing before, but I was primarily making children's clothing, and kids don't have curves. Kids are little like sausage tubes. It's super easy to make clothes for them.
Right.
Adults are a little more complicated. So I went and got just a McCall's pattern. I'm like, okay, I'm going to follow this step by step, see if I can do it. And I think it was like a week it took me to make because I was filming as I go. Like, let's go on this adventure together and see if I can make a shirt.
Right.
And it turned out fine. Like, it turned out great. I was like, okay, this is fun. And then I kind of started looking at fabric differently from there. Like I love big bold prints, but I don't quilt with them a whole lot because you're going to cut it up
Hmm.
and then you only get like this tiny little piece of it. So like, oh, this would be fun for some of those big prints that I've been hoarding and don't know what to do with. So I started making my own shirts. I'm up to like, I don't know, 40, maybe 50 shirts now for
Okay.
myself.
Okay.
And I have a bin full of fabric for more shirts that I need to get to. Um, but it's kind of become my signature. Like people
Hmm.
almost expect it now, and they expect the front to be like perfectly lined up by
Okay.
print,
Okay.
and the pocket, like everything, because that's what I do. So I actually have a few shirts from very early on in my shirt making adventure that the prints don't match because I didn't know how to do that yet. And
Right.
I don't wear them anymore because I was like, I'm going to get raked over the coals if I show up online in a shirt where the print doesn't match.
They're gonna drag you in the comments. Yep.
Oh, they would too. There's one that I get away with. I think just because it's such a busy print, it's
Yeah.
hard to tell. But I have one for sure. It's a Tula Pink print. It's from the Daydreamer line with the flamingos, and
Okay.
like down the center, it's like two flamingo butts and not the heads, and it's bad. But I hadn't figured out how to line up the print yet. Now it's like second nature to me. I can line it up, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, but so it started with that. And then in 2023 is when I started doing the trucker hats.
Hmm.
And that started because I actually found a trucker hat at a yard sale. And it was cute. It had Paris on it, and my husband and I had just gotten back from Paris.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, this was meant to be. I brought it home and it's like it stunk. Like it smelled like it was in someone's basement for 30 years. So I was like, I'm not gonna wear that. So I had it on my table and I was just bored on a conference call one day and I ripped it apart. Like, how is this put together? Because that's how my brain works.
Okay.
So I broke it apart. I was like, okay, are quilted trucker hats a thing? So I Googled it. I didn't find anything. Like, okay, let's make it a thing. So I drafted out my own pattern. I figured out how to make it because I wanted it to be something that anyone with any sewing machine could make. So I couldn't use materials that like you'd have to have an industrial machine for. So like putting
Okay.
plastic in the brim, like commercial hats, it's like a thick plastic or even sometimes like a thick chipboard cardboard type thing.
Hmm.
Um, but some little brother machine off the shelf isn't going to sew through that.
Right.
So developing the pattern, the hardest part was figuring what materials to use. So I use Pellon Peltex for the brim, so it's still very flexible, but it holds its shape. Um,
Okay.
there's like flex foam in the front to give that structure, and then the sides just have interfacing on them. So all of that's like in the pattern, like what it is that I use. And I've taught classes with people that have, like the super expensive Berninas or a vintage machine or just an entry level machine, and everyone's been able to sew them. So that was my goal, and that has worked. And then I launched the pattern in October of 2023. And ever since then, like I have to go back and like make shirt or hats to match all the shirts that I've already made. And some of them, like I know I have the scraps left somewhere, and I cannot find them. So not all my shirts have matching hats, but shirts moving forward will.
Okay. All right. All
And
right.
now
You have
bow ties too.
a whole moment now. Yes.
Oh yeah, I posted a video. I had an Airbnb at QuiltCon this year, and I had
Uh-huh.
like a huge walk-in closet, and I hung up like the shirt with the matching bow tie and the matching hat above it, like all of my outfits planned out. And of course, I think I had 8 outfits, even though it's only a 4-day event. I'm crazy like that.
Options. Yeah.
Right. And like people loved it because it's fun to see like having this whole coordinated outfit together that I made. I've not started
Right.
making pants yet. That might be my next adventure.
Oh, you just all these adventures, all of these adventures. You're gonna have a whole matching fabric line walking down the aisle next year at
Yep.
Quilt, and I can't wait to see it. So, talk to me about some of the like you've launched your patterns and you've worked with AccuQuilt for your dyes. You've got these viral moments on social media. What are some of those pivotal moments when you were establishing your brand that you kind of like go back to and like some of the lessons that you've learned along the way? Because a lot of people sometimes get discouraged if they can't, interact with, get that viral video on, social media, or get the people to look at their patterns or different things like that. Like, what were some of those moments where you're like, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to do what I want to do, and people will, follow if they want to. Like, how did that work for you?
Well, and that is kind of my attitude around it. Like people will ask me for advice, like how I've built my brand and my following, and I will be honest and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't. I just do what I want to do. So a lot of times it's just like, here's what I'm doing today. So I'm going to film it and it's going to be my content for the day.
Right.
Um, some of the moments that I recall that like actually did help build my following was the poison apple quilt on TikTok. Like that's really what got me started. And then the randomly generated quilt. And that one, it started on TikTok and I wasn't going to go anywhere else because at the time I was not focused on any other platforms. I was like,
Hmm.
I've already filmed it. I might as well just upload it to Instagram and Facebook as a reel.
Okay.
And that started building my Instagram following very quickly. People just liked it. And I'd have people commenting like, I'm not a quilter. I love D&D though. And I use a 20-sided dice to roll for the quilt pattern and then the colors.
Okay.
And it just, people found it intriguing. And so I know a huge chunk of my following base, they're not quilters. They never will be quilters, and that's fine. They enjoy watching it. I have plenty of people I follow in other crafts that I will never do, but it's
Right.
fascinating to watch.
Right.
Like there's someone online who does like I don't know what it's called, but she takes this little mold and dips it in tin and makes like little Christmas ornaments, like molten tin, and it's just fascinating to watch. Stained glass is another one that I will not let myself get into because I do not have time for that. But like I'm a sucker for a new hobby. I actually have a shed full of powder coating equipment from when I was going to redo a sewing machine.
All right. All right.
So like I will jump headfirst into all these things. I'm like I can't afford to get into stained glass right now. Like that's a whole other beast. So I appreciate that people follow me that have no interest in actually quilting, but they enjoy watching it. So I appreciate all of my followers out there who are in that category.
That's awesome.
Um, and then I did start on YouTube also. That one, it's my newest channel, I guess. And a lot of it is just the same content as the YouTube shorts.
Hmm.
But on YouTube, I also do some longer format, like full-on tutorials and more in-depth long format type of videos.
Okay.
So for those out there who are trying to find that viral moment, I do always say just be yourself.
Hmm.
Don't try to be some fabricated, curated version of what you think people want. Over the years, social media has taken a turn. It used to be, that everyone wanted to see those super curated, pretty pictures, all the filters on Instagram, all of that. But I don't know if it's been since the pandemic or what. People want to see like authentic people,
Hmm.
like someone who they feel like they could be friends with, and they're just hanging out with friends. And
Right.
I find that to be more relatable and get more interactions than some of the more specially curated, almost fake feeling kind of content. So just be yourself, just film what you're doing that day, throw it out there, and eventually something will stick, hopefully.
Yeah, I definitely think, you mentioned, I do think it's probably post pandemic. But a lot of people, especially in our industry, the quilting, the crafting industry, like they want to see you not make like a full blown, you cut through the whole quilt mistake, but like to know like it's okay, not everything's going to be perfect. It's you've got this, just keep pushing through. This is what we're doing. This is how I overcame it. If it works for you, cool. If not, cool. It's just having, like you said, those more authentic connections to vibe with people through a
Mhm.
camera and think, oh yeah, that's my friend. And it's just a better feeling, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
definitely.
So, because I'm a nosy person, that's who I am, and I wear that proudly. I'm very nosy. Are there any like new patterns on the horizon for you? Any fun collaborations? Any new dyes? Maybe you don't have to obviously say what, because I know there are contractual obligations to be quiet on certain things. But
Right,
like,
NDAs are a
India,
thing.
all the things. But like, are there? I'm sure there are fun things on the horizon, and is there something that you're personally working on that you could kind of key us into that you're doing?
I do have a new dye with AcuQuilt that will be coming out in September. I'm
Okay.
very, very excited about it. And I have another one I've pitched to them that I'm just waiting to hear back if they're going to move forward with it.
Okay.
Um, so that's super fun. I've really enjoyed working with AcuQuilt. Like they've been a great company to work with. I'm an ambassador, I'm an educator, I'm a pattern designer, and now a licensed designer. And I think I'm the only person who holds all of those titles.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead on with your bad
like,
self.
right, like anything they're offering, like I'll sign up, I will do it because
Right.
they're fun to work with. I love the product, and I use it in my daily life. So I can definitely stand behind them with that. Um, I don't have any patterns of my own in the works at the moment. I think just because I've been so busy with everything else. I
Right.
do have a few ideas for ones I want to try and do, but I did not have it on my 2025 goal list to like release X amount of patterns. In 2022, I released I think 10 patterns, and it was insane
Wow.
because that's like I was riding the high of going viral, and just like every month I was putting out a new pattern. And then last year I did three, I think four last year. And my goal was just like one a quarter.
Uh-huh.
But this year I have not released any, and I don't have any up in my noggin that I need to figure out on paper yet. So
Do you have a pattern for the shirts?
no, so it's a McCall's pattern. Actually, that is one I'm working on. I'm trying to find someone that I can work with to design my own shirt pattern to sell.
Okay.
So if anyone out there is listening, does that, hit me up. I could figure out making the pattern for myself,
Yeah.
but then grading it for other sizes. I actually took some design classes, like fashion design, in college, so
Yeah.
like I know how it works. I'm not gonna sit there and try and figure out grading a shirt pattern for other sizes. So that's beyond me. I need someone else's help with that. I know what I want in the shirt and what I don't want in the shirt because I've modified this McCall's pattern quite a bit, and there's more modifications I want to make.
Okay.
Like I don't want a separate front button placket because then that would be two sides to try and match up the print.
Oh,
This shirt
uh-huh.
does not have a collar stand, but I want a collar stand so that you can wear your bow tie with it because it gets a little weird trying to put a bow tie on these shirts. So there's like little things like that. So I just kind of want to start over fresh, design all of the pieces that I want to have in the shirt, and have a pattern that I can teach, like do a tutorial and sell the pattern and all that. So
Cool. Okay. All right. So we hear some new things coming from AccuQuilt, so that's exciting. And then maybe we'll see something coming from the shirt. We'll put that on the 2026 bingo card. How's that sound?
there we go. That works for
There
me.
we go. All right, that works. So, we've talked a lot about AccuQuilt, but like beyond AccuQuilt products, are there any other like essential tools kind of in your quilting arsenal that like are you have to have them for your everyday stuff?
um, I don't. I love my Juki sewing machine because it's
Okay.
fast. It's
All
just a
right.
straight stitch. You
Yep.
don't need all of those 256 fancy stitches. There are times I wish it had a zigzag, but I can live without it.
Right.
Um, at first, my only reservation was actually doing the buttonholes on my shirts because you can't do that
Yep.
with a straight stitch. But
Right.
they released a buttonhole attachment for the Juki TL series. It's an
Hmm.
electronic buttonholer. It is crazy fancy, and I love it. Like it's practically its own sewing machine. So now I'm all set to go with my shirts on one machine. I do have a long arm machine, which personally I find helps me finish more quilts in a year.
Hmm.
It's definitely not a requirement to
Right.
have, but I have found it has helped me because I'm typically the kind of quilter, I'm a bit of an anomaly. I don't normally have a lot of projects going at the same time. I like
Okay.
to have one project and see it through start to finish before I move on to the next one.
Oh,
because
I need some of that.
I will get overwhelmed if I have multiple things happening. Like I
Yeah.
just know me and my ADHD, like it will be too much. Right now I'm actually working on whips that were sew alongs from last year, which really stressed me out. Like having multiple sew alongs I was doing at the same time. I was like, okay, I don't like this. This is not my style. So they got put in a box. I'm now bringing them out one at a time and we're
Okay.
finishing them up.
Good.
Um, but having the long arm then means like I can just start the quilt, get it all done, get it quilted, get it bound, put it on my huge pile of quilts in the guest room, and move on to the next one.
Oh yeah, I that's yeah, it's a benefit to have that machine for sure. And then back to your comment on Jukis, I have 3, 4 Jukis. I think it's 4. But and they are yeah, I love the machine. My TL, yeah, it's super duper fast. It's one of my favorites. I had a friend come up to work with me because I needed help finishing a quilt because I had too many going on at one time. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that. But they were helping they were helping me finish it, and they'd never sewn on a TL Juki before, and they were doing it, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so fast." And yeah,
It's amazing. Yeah.
just to have all of those and ready. So, like, I guess the last question that I really have for you is I always like to like kind of manifest what's going to happen in the future. So, like, where do you see like yourself, Rose City Originals, like in 5 years? Like, what's your goal that you want to have going on?
My big goal for 5 years is actually to be able to quit my day job and do this full time. So, like, I
Oh, I
still
didn't know
have
you
a
had
day
a day
job.
job.
Yes, I do. I
Oh,
know, I'm
wait,
insane.
wait, what? I didn't know you. Okay, hold on. This changes the whole trajectory of this conversation.
Yeah, I still have like the 8 to 5, Monday through Friday day job, corporate America. I'm lucky that I get to work from home, so I don't have like the
Okay.
commute time that take is taken away from me. Because my commute time used to be like an hour each way to the
Oh, wow.
office, and then the pandemic hit, and now we're all just permanently work from home.
Okay.
So that helps. I can also have like the long arm going because I'll long arm for other people, and I can
Mhm.
have it going in the background while I'm working and sitting on boring conference calls that I don't need to be on. So it works for me. Um, I do process and reporting. Like I create processes, process improvement, run lots of like analytic reporting and revenue reporting. So it's a really boring job, but I've been with the company for a very long time. I've
Okay.
had many roles in the job in the company. Um, but within 5 years, I'm hoping that I can move to doing Rose City Originals full time.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then for everyone that's been listening or watching, where are all the places that they can find you online so they can keep up with all the fun, what I'm doing today things that you do?
Sure. So on social media, I am at Rose City Originals on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And then my website is just rosecityoriginals.com.
Fantastic. And then you sell all of your patterns and stuff like that on your website, right?
Yep, I have them in PDF and in print form. So whichever you prefer, I have it for you.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for spending some time with me today and letting all of us learn a little bit more about you and all the fun things that you were doing. I can't wait to see what comes out from your new AccuQuilt designs later this fall. So I'll be looking out for those. And then will you be at Market this year in Houston or
I don't
Festival?
believe I will be at Market. I will be at Festival.
Okay. Well, then we'll have to
Yeah.
link up at Festival and catch up, and you'll
Yeah.
have to show me those new designs.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, everyone. That was our wonderful episode with Chris from Rose City Originals. We got to learn a whole lot more about all the fun things that he's been doing. Make sure you hop over to his website, rosecityoriginals.com. I'll also have it linked below so you can take a look at all of his fun patterns and his collaborations with AcuQuilt. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and I will see you next time.